Hi everybody and welcome to an episode of the Smashing Skull Sessions, and a big shout out before we start to Rising Suns Brewery, who are our main sponsors and craft some fantastic beers right here in Cork City. Okay guys, delighted to welcome a band who I've been following since maybe around 2016, 2017. Hailing from Belgium, I have Stefan, who is guitarist and vocalist and probably frontman, Stefan, of PSYCHONAUT. So Stefan, thanks for coming on the show.
You're welcome, man. Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate people who take the time out to come on here, and especially when it's bands who I admire musically and bands who are doing so well, and it's absolutely fantastic to see that happening, and especially for yourselves. 2022, Stefan, what a year it's been like.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been crazy. Yeah.
Not to mind just releasing the album, but I mean, you've been touring pretty extensively through 22, have you?
Yeah, exactly. It's been really fun. The biggest tour we did was with The Ocean and PG Lost in June, I think it was. And that was a tour that had been postponed like 2 or 3 times thanks to the pandemic. So it was so fun to finally be able to hit the road. And it was actually our first real proper tour. So that was amazing. Yeah, so happy to be able to do that.
Jeez, what a tour to start with though. PG Lost and The Ocean. I mean, come on.
Yeah. They were kind of laughing at us because they were like, how is this your first tour? Our first tour was so shitty.
So you also played Dunk, Stefan, in May, didn't you? Which I witnessed myself seeing you play, and you were one of the highlights of the weekend. Your set was fucking incredible.
Awesome.
And the energy, man, that came from me, and I suppose you fed off it. You saw that from the people watching. You were absolutely
that was really cool to finally play Dunk Festival. Yeah, it was amazing.
And again, you speak of bands there like PG Lost and The Ocean. You know, like, are they bands that you would have? I won't say they influenced you, like, but obviously you're keeping tabs on them because it's sort of within the genres that you're playing. Would they be bands that you've followed yourselves?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm a huge fan of The Ocean. I've been for like, I think 10 years or so. PG Lost I got to know a bit more recently, but I loved it straight away. I remember watching like every YouTube video I could find of them and finding these insane shows they did in China on the biggest stage I'd ever seen, basically. Amazing bands. Really honored to be to have toured with them. Yeah.
And isn't that mad? Isn't it, because we speak about this sort of post scene being so small in a sense, but when you go to China, the following is crazy over there, isn't it? They go mad for it.
Yeah, apparently never been, but
no, there seem to be pockets all over the world. You know, small pockets of die-hard fans of this post music scene. It's a brilliant thing.
Yeah, it is. It's really something special.
So come here, tell me, Stefan, your sound, right? I know you're influenced yourself, I think, by a lot of the 70s rock bands, the psychedelic groovy sound of, you know, you name Black Sabbath, Zeppelin, whoever else, Pink Floyd, obviously. Who would be one of your favorite bands of that time and that generation? Who was your biggest inspiration yourself, personally?
Definitely Led Zeppelin.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
That has been my obsession since I was, I think, 17, let's say. I think I played guitar for like a year or so, and thanks to my dad, I got to know them because I asked him if he knew any cool riffs I could learn, and just got obsessed with Led Zeppelin. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the biggest reason I have my Les Paul. I just wanted Jimmy Page's guitar. I'm so happy with it. Yeah.
Well, I tell you, you do a credit, and I give you that, Stefan. You do a credit.
Cool, man.
Come here, and then again, I suppose you have modern bands. Then I suppose you've got the likes of Tool, Amenra, your local Belgian band, who obviously have a big part in your sound and style. Do you think?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Again, would you be touring with them sometime?
Oh, I would love to. Yeah, I think it would be possible. Yeah.
I think it's very possible. Yeah, very possible. Yeah. And again, for myself, like listening to your music, you know, and sort of following the trajectory of where you're going at the moment, and especially with this latest album, like, you remind me of an early sort of Baroness, an early Mastodon. Dare I say it? Like, you know, your sound is so, I don't know, so sharp, so clean, but yet heavy as hell. Like, are those bands that would have inspired you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm a big Mastodon fan too, and of course also bands like Gojira and Tool and Amun Ra, all those bands you mentioned. Yeah, It's a lot of it comes from the 70s, but those modern or I guess more modern bands, I love them so much, and it's funny. I think it's the combination of those two extremes that kind of became our band's sound, I guess. I love those two.
And did you all follow the same taste of music, or was there a mixture there? Were you all back influenced by the 70s and by modern metal?
Yeah, I think for myself, that's always been the case. Our first drummer, Peter, was really big into the 70s as well.
Yeah.
But Thomas, he was always more of a grunge fan. He's, I think, the biggest Nirvana fan I know. And also even stuff like like Blur and Alice in Chains. He really loves that stuff.
Yeah.
I do too, but that's like his main influence, I guess. And Harm is also like maybe a bit more into the softer rock. He also really likes Nirvana. And he also plays in a different band called Ikiga, and they also play this just really cool, energetic rock. He's a bit more on the soft side of rock, let's say.
Yeah.
And I was always the old guy in the band. I guess
you can't be sure you're not calling yourself old, Stefan. Jesus.
No. Let's not go there yet.
Because if you go there, I have to go there, and I think I'm a lot older than yourself at this stage.
Yeah.
Come here again. We'll talk about Violate Consensus Reality later on, but when you look back at that album, no, it was only October. I mean, that it was released, but it feels like it's been out for longer because it's gained so much traction, and there's been so much interest in it, and there's been so much talk about it. Is that your song? Would you classify that album as? Are you happy to say that's Psychonaut?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It was so difficult coming up with a sequel to our first album because we got this impression that it was received so well. We barely read any negative comments about it. I'm sure there were plenty, but maybe we didn't find them. But we were so nervous on what's the next one gonna be like, and I'm very, very happy that we were stubborn enough to kind of explore this bit more angry sound. And kind of give in to what we were actually feeling and not pretending to be happy all the time, which I sometimes kind of get from the first album. It's like very positive. And now it feels a lot more honest and a lot more personal. So both musically and conceptually, it really comes from the heart. Yeah, I'm very happy with it.
Yeah, on Unfold the God, man. So would you classify that as being a more positive album?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this is more of a balanced record. This is like, I think conceptually it's like a contradiction all of the time. I think we have 4 songs that are more positive based and 4 songs that are super angry, and that kind of represents how we were feeling during the writing process. Of course, writing the most part during the pandemic, which was like a wave of emotions and fear and anger, and then just finally getting back into spirituality, so finding our center again, but then becoming angry again at the things you see in the media and all kinds of corruption stories we hear. So all of those things really got in there, while Unfold the Godman was almost like a lesson we were trying to teach people, instead of being like a release of our emotions. That's what this new album really is, I think.
Yeah, so again, Unfold the Godman. For anyone who doesn't know the album, keep an eye out on this cover if you see it around. Again, nice. I think this is a fantastic album, and again, it got the pelagic work of art, which makes it all that extra special. We'll talk about pelagic in a minute as well. So yeah, that album, that came out only October, as I said, in 22. How long were you sitting on it? How long were you sort of saying to yourself, we have this ready, it's ready to go?
I think we sent in the master tracks at the start of February. So good 8 or 9 months, I think, of patiently waiting. Of course, we released the first single right at the start of the summer, I think.
That's right.
But it was a long time. It was frustrating.
A great choice of track to release actually as a single, because you've got a guest artists appearing on it, which gives it another dimension, another dynamic, and definitely draws in possibly another crowd, people who wouldn't have heard of Psychonaut before. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it just
that intentional?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, you have to be honest about that, of course. but to us that is the best track on the album. It's not maybe our favorite song of all the three of us, but we all agree, I think, that is like objectively the best composition, maybe, especially with, of course, Stephanie and Colin's contributions.
Exactly.
Super proud of it. So it had to be a single, and of course it was the title track. It represents everything.
Yeah, it ticked a lot of boxes. It ticked a lot of boxes, Stefan, and it probably still is for me one of the strongest and my favorite tracks on the album too. And that's saying something, because there's not a weak track in this album. Like, it's bangers from start to finish. It's crazy altogether.
Thank you.
If you just go back to the days of 2014, 24 trips around the sun. Again, I do my homework there last week on that, because I wouldn't have been into musically at that stage. As I said, it was nearly 2017, 18 before I actually got into Psychonaut. But how do you look back on that EP?
Yeah, it's funny. It seems so long ago, and at the same time, I can recall it like it was yesterday. Just being in that tiny studio, recording 4 tracks that we had wrote in like a year or so. I mean, yeah, it's almost cute, because we still have a making of a little documentary about that EP, and I think I rewatched it this summer.
Okay.
And yeah, it's really fun to see. It's the start of something big. I think you can kind of hear. You can definitely hear a lot more of those 70s influences.
Yeah.
It's a lot less angry. The tuning, especially, is also a lot higher. We're going very low on these new albums.
Yeah,
but it's fun to look back onto. Yeah, it's a part of growing up. It was our first real tiny concept album we ever wrote. It was the start of this whole search for spirituality and I don't know, exploring consciousness and all that. So it's really the start of a journey that's been amazing.
But you can look back fondly on it. So, it's not, some people will look back in their first albums and try and dismiss them as, we weren't prepared, we were raw, we've developed and we've changed. But you can actually look back and say, we're very proud of that.
I can think of 50 things we could have done better if I think about it now. But it is perfect like it is to me. It really sounds like how we wanted to sound back then.
Okay.
I'm happy with it. It's just in the zeitgeist. It fits.
It does indeed. It does, absolutely. And then I suppose in 2018, then Unfold the Godman. The writing process for that, then, Stefan, briefly tell me, was it tough? Was it hard work, or again had you the ideas already simmering away in the background?
It was definitely. I mean, it was a huge project to start on, because we I think at the time when we had the idea for our first full album conceptually, we had not yet released our second EP yet.
Okay.
So we had I think we had 4 or 5 songs. New songs that we were playing live, and then this idea came for a full album, and it had to be a concept album, and we had this completely worked out idea for it, but the new songs we had didn't really fit, so that's why we decided to first do that second EP. But the idea for the album was already in the back of our heads. And just kind of getting that stuff out of our head onto or into something musical was really hard, because it was a 70-minute album, basically. I mean, I had so much to say. I wanted to say so much, and I had to choose chapters conceptually. And I knew I wanted really emotional music, but I also wanted to show that we could play our instruments pretty well. So it had to be advanced music, so to speak. And that was crazy. It took us 3 years to write and record that album. So
wow, that's a long time, Stefan, isn't it? It's a long time in music.
It seems to be our standard now.
So you're telling me it's 2025 before we hear something new, is it?
I'm afraid so. Yeah, that seems to be
fair enough. We can wait. But by the way, that EP that we're talking about, Ferocious Fellowman, that I should have actually spoke about that before I jumped onto Unfold the Godman. That so is in a way part of Unfold the Godman, because that music was all around the same time, and there was a couple of tracks that you pulled from one from the other. Exactly. We liked the songs. They sounded great live. We were getting a lot of good feedback from people, but it didn't feel right for the full album. We wanted to start fresh for that. So that's when we decided to first do the EP. I think you can kind of hear it, because we also decided to record that EP live in the studio.
for the most part, which is the only time we've ever done that.
Okay.
And that was also because we simply loved playing those songs live. So try to capture that feeling.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, like there's still great tracks to hear live. They still sound well. They still sound vibrant, full of life. You know, I mean, it's great to see that fans can look back on their previous 3, 4, 5 albums and bring them to a live. You know, some bands can tend to sort of dismiss older material and only concentrate on news, which is something you don't do, which I love. I love to see.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I think the chances of us playing some of those songs now are very small, maybe one day, but I don't dislike them. It's just a chapter. It's good. We're proud of it. And now we do what we do now.
Okay. Can I talk about the band name, Stefan? Psychonaut, for anyone who's interested in this, because as I mentioned just off here too, like from my research, Psychonaut is a way of exploring the mind. And I know yourselves as a band and as a group of lads, like you're deep in spirituality and philosophy, religion. It interests you. It's a big part of what you are and who you are. Would I be right in saying that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's what's at the foundation of all our music. Yeah.
And are you all in the same boat in that respect? All 3 members of the band, do you all follow the same beliefs, same ideas?
I think to some extent we do. I think the biggest thing we believe in is human kindness.
Okay.
I think we all agree that the negative image that we sometimes have about humanity is not one that is serving us very well. I get where it comes from. Obviously, I have it too. But we do agree that in to put it in a cheesy way, that God lives through humans. If there is such a thing as a God, then it is human kindness to us. Thomas, our bass player, was raised Catholic, and so was I, but I didn't really feel it very much. He felt it a bit more, and he was. I think he still considers himself maybe to be Christian or Catholic. I was a bit more drawn to Buddhism and to even some really vague New Age stuff for a certain period. And Harm, of course, he recently joined the band. He didn't write on that album.
That's right.
So at the time it was Peter, and Peter he was also a bit more catching my drift, I guess. He was also heavy into meditation and Buddhism and also Taoism, and just reading a lot of different books from different points of view and different religions. And so there's an overlap, but it kind of comes from a different source.
Okay.
Put it that way.
Yeah. And again, just discussing briefly about your spirituality and that side of that side of things. The period of COVID, those 2.5 years, they must have been tough. They were tough for everybody, obviously, but somebody who believes in something so strongly like yourself, did you find it very tough, COVID?
Absolutely. I hated it. Yeah, of course. I wouldn't say I had it worse than anyone else, of course, but I guess what I disliked about it most is when it kind of started to pass, when the world was like on hold for 4 or 5 months in 2020. I was really hoping that this was like the start of something huge, something new, something positive that could come from this, because the world felt like it had been reset. And it was like, wow, now we can do anything. This is kind of what we needed, maybe, in a way. And then I was a little disappointed to find out that it didn't really go the way I thought it would go. And I know I guess we're back to business as usual for the most part. But I did try to make the best of it, of course. I struggled a lot with being alone and missing my friends and family. Because we hug a lot. We're big softies, we need each other. We need to touch each other. So that was really rough, but I tried to just get through it. And eventually, I think all the free time we had actually helped us in the long run, because I got back into meditation. I think I was kind of back into my mind for the past few months, and that the free time really helped me get back into it. I also got into reading a lot of really cool things. I tried the Wim Hof method in the pandemic, the ice cold showers and the breathing exercises. Really, really amazing. So eventually, I think it made me better, but it definitely was rough. Okay.
Well, you tried to make something positive out of it. So yourself personally, you took on all these ideas, just meditation and everything else. Did that reflect in your songwriting and your lyrics approaching this new album?
Yeah, sure. I think that's the first track, Storm Approaching, is kind of what I felt was happening before the pandemic, like something really bad is coming, and of course mainly related to, let's say, climate change and increasing amount of corruption. And I was like, fuck, the world is about to fall apart. And then the pandemic hit, and then I thought, whoa, maybe this is it, but it's not what I thought it would be, but it might lead somewhere good. But it didn't happen. So then when I was in that whole meditative state, I guess, or that period where I was meditating more often, that's when tracks like Hope or Interbeing and Towards the Edge came out. Those were the really positive songs. And when I was feeling angry at the world, I wrote All Your Gods Have Gone and, A Pacifist Guide to Violence, all those really brutal, heavy tracks. That's when those came out. So it really reflects how we lived through that.
Yeah, and like you said, the fucking horror of it all is it's business as usual. And you use those words yourself, which is...
It is, yeah.
It's sad to see, like, those in power are still in power. Those that are corrupt just continue doing what they were doing. There's this...
Yeah, it's unfortunate that the bad guys often win.
Yeah, they do, yeah. We can't change the world, Stefan, unfortunately.
Not as quickly as we might want to.
No, not individually, anyway, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
While we're touching on the album, Violate Consensus Reality, I want to play a track for everybody here. I've decided on the opening track, which is A Storm Approaching, guys. If anyone hasn't heard this album yet, I have it here just to show you guys. Again, we'll talk about the artwork maybe in a minute, Stefan. I love the artwork as well. But here you go, lads. This is the first track, A Storm Approaching. See what you think of this. So there you have it, guys. What a fucking track, lads. What an opener to an absolutely amazing album. That is A Storm Approaching from Violate Consensus Reality, which only came out in October of 22. So if you haven't heard it, lads, get onto Bandcamp straight away and check it out. And while you're there, check out their previous albums, their back catalogue as well. Incredible music. Right, Stefan, can we talk about the concept behind Violate Consensus Reality? The title, I suppose, to begin with.
Sure. It's a title, if I remember correctly, that came from a book by, I think it was Charles Eisenstein. I read a lot of books when writing, but I think it was that one. Mm-hmm. So I guess consensus reality you could look at as a lot of different things, but to me it's the collection of agreements, rules, mythologies we have about what it means to be human, to be alive, to be conscious. Mm-hmm. To be alive in comparison to being dead, or to be good in comparison to being bad, all those ideas we have. and I guess it's a sequel to our first album, of course, To Unfold the Godman, where we kind of explored what our potential might be as individuals. Were we to get back into contact with a higher version of ourselves, or this higher self that we believe does exist. And this album kind of explores what a potential world could look like if we had that different vision of humanity.
Yeah.
Because I think the narrative we have now is that we, or at least a lot of people have, is that we are kind of selfish and primitive and violent beings. But because we have a system that kind of protects us from that nature, like we have rules and laws and all those things, and societies and people in charge, that bad side of our nature kind of gets, it gets buried. But if it were not for a society, then we would all be selfish beings and just kill each other and eat and rape each other. So we should be thankful for society for keeping us in line, so to speak.
Yeah.
And the whole notion of that is just, we flip that, because there is a different book which is called Humankind by Rutger Bregman, a Dutch author. He kind of makes that point, and he does it really well. He says that it may actually be the other way around, and that maybe our nature is fundamentally good, but it's actually our contemporary society that brings out this really bad side of us, that kind of teaches selfishness and competitiveness and protectionism and escapism, because it feels like we're all in this race, in this competition for resources, because it feels like there's not enough for everyone to go around. I guess that's also an idea we have. So we should kind of make sure that we earn our place here, and because we don't want to be one of those people who misses the boat. So work hard, fight, and make sure you come out on top. All those ideas, it's I think it's a bit outdated. And I do want to say that I'm really happy to be alive in this time, because I think we should be grateful for being in 2023 now. It's one of the best times ever, I think, to be alive as a human being. I certainly wouldn't want to be alive in the Middle Ages or something like that. I think life was way worse then. So maybe I shouldn't complain. But deep down, I think a lot of people feel that humanity and life and consciousness are way more than we make it out to be. So what we're trying to do is incentivize people to question at least the narrative, not necessarily go against it, because you should do whatever you want. But at least don't just blindly assume those things you have been taught and that seem so obvious, and that people kind of laugh at you if you disagree with them. Just remember to keep your mind open and to dare to have your own, vision about that.
Yeah, I think there is a shift in people's way of thinking, I think, over the last few decades, because even here in Ireland, we a very, very, very Catholic country. The church was the be all end all. The priest who called to your door was God himself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But things have changed over the last 20, 30 years. People are finally making up their own minds and not following what their parents did, what generations before have done.
Exactly.
People seem to be thinking for themselves for a change, which is a good thing. Maybe not for the Catholic Church here in Ireland, because they're struggling to keep people, But again, people move forward. You have to look forward. You have to move forward, and people have to think for themselves for that to happen.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. That's my little spurt there. Tell me, who did the writing and who did the lyrical writing on this album?
Mostly me. Yeah. I think since Unfold the Godman, I wrote most of the music. In the past, Thomas he wrote a few songs on the first two EPs. Ever since Unfold the Godman, I've been writing the most of it, including the lyrics. Yeah.
Oh, busy man.
But I do get a lot of feedback from them. I always send demos and just ask them, what do you think of this? Is this maybe too long? I think this riff is kind of boring, but I really like this one. And so I get a lot of feedback from them, which I really need.
Okay.
That's definitely true.
But you work pretty close together, even though you are the main writer, but you still get a lot of feedback from the guys. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
And I mean, you're together for a long time anyway, as friends, I'm assuming. You go back right from the start. I know there's a drummer change.
Yeah.
But other than that,
Yeah,
would you be
Thomas
close friends? Like,
yeah, exactly. We've known each other for, I want to say, a good 12 years now, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, we've been through a lot together. It's Thomas was 19 and I was 22, and yeah, so 12 years later, it was an interesting thing to see each other change into semi-adults, let's say, and to kind of get a job and
Yeah.
get a house and all that stuff.
Face reality, Stefan. Yeah, it's a horror, isn't it?
Yeah, it is what it is.
But again, you touched on something very interesting there now as well, because trying to keep a healthy balance between home and work life, and obviously the band and the music. Are you able to do it? Are you happy to do it? Or is there pressure in it?
I mean, it can be exhausting because we all have full-time jobs, and I think we are kind of approaching that point where it is becoming, I wouldn't say impossible, but it's becoming increasingly more difficult to do those two things without kind of sacrificing one for the other. Because so I'm a teacher, so luckily I have a lot of time off. But still, it's a job that requires a lot of energy, and sometimes if we have 3 shows in a weekend, then I don't really have any time to relax for a while. And on Monday morning, I just have to be there and be energetic and enthusiastic. And it's not their fault that I'm playing shows every weekend, right? They deserve someone who's happy and is really into it.
You can't just tell them, lads, keep quiet, open your books, don't annoy me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
no chance. But like you said, you're a teacher yourself. What do you teach? Do you mind me asking before we go on?
I teach French and English.
Oh, very good. Yeah. And which you find easier, French or English? Which is easier to teach? We'll say first and foremost.
French is easier to teach, but English is sometimes more fun because the overall level of students of English is higher. So you can have actual conversations with them about things you find interesting. And in French, it's more focusing on grammar and kind of studying vocabulary because they don't really know much of it yet. So it's hard to talk in that language at the start. Yeah.
And actually, again, was there ever a decision to write your lyrics in English? Was that always going to be the case? Were you always going to sing in English? That was never questioned, was it?
I kind of thought about doing 1 or 2 songs in French once, but I don't want to generalize, but I think English just sounds better when it is sang than French. I don't know why. It's a personal thing, maybe.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll stick with English.
Great. Where was I there now with that question? Oh yeah, the Belgian post-metal scene I want to talk about as well, Stefan, because actually, sorry, we're not even finished talking about the album. We've only covered the title. I wanted to ask about the album cover and the artwork and where it came from.
Yeah, it's a picture that was taken at the studio, which is funny because it was the same studio where we recorded Unfold the Godman, and the cover of that album was also a picture taken at that studio. So it's twice that we did the same thing. This picture was a bit easier to take because it's of course just a human being, but it's our roadie actually. He's called Frankie. Okay, and we were looking for a universal human head. And we thought, here's one. And we asked him, and he, I think when we were taking the picture, he thought we were just like experimenting a little bit. He didn't realize it would actually, it might become the cover, but it did,
And he's okay to be used as an experimental head, is he? He's no issues with that.
Yeah, he was okay with that. And he's, it's in a way, it's kind of a tribute to him because he's been with us since the first year, and he's our roadie, he's our driver, he kind of was our manager at one point.
He's a big part of the band, so Stefan, isn't
absolutely,
he? Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think he has missed 5 shows since we've known him. It's ridiculous. He always comes.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and the visual effects on the cover is also completely analog. We bought, or I should say, our designer Sam. He bought this really cheap prism keychains, and he just held them in front of the lens and kind of worked with the sunlight and the clouds above him and took this picture, and of course the colors were maybe upgraded a little bit in Photoshop, but the picture is just one whole, and I think that's really cool. Yeah,
Fantastic.
And it's kind of supposed to display this different vision of humanity, this kind of mind opening to realize its full potential, I guess.
Great. It's nice to. I'm glad I asked that question, because I always wondered, and I like to find out the ideas and the concepts behind artwork, because it's such a big part of an album, Stefan, isn't it? Getting the artwork right.
Yeah, definitely. It has to represent the album visually, right?
It does, I think so, yeah. Tell me, the decision to go with Pelagic Records, how did that come about? Because, I mean, it's a great fucking move for both of you, for Pelagic and yourselves, you know. I think it's a win-win. But how did it come about?
Yeah, it's a really cool combination. It happened in, let's say, the end of 2019. So we released Unfold the Godman on our own in September 2018, and we played a year of shows with that. And for some reason, we got onto some really cool Belgian festivals too. So we had a really good year. And at the end of the year, we kind of, we lost a bit of momentum, I guess.
Yeah.
After those really cool festival shows, we were back to playing smaller clubs for 30 people, 50 people. And that was a bit rough. I guess maybe for our ego too. And also we were running out of vinyl. So, and we were broke. We didn't have any money. So it was really a win-win thing when it was actually our merch guy, Didier. Right. He was the one who told us, maybe you should reach out to a label, and I would suggest Pelagic, to see if they're up for a distribution deal maybe, or maybe some kind of collaboration. And we were kind of laughing at him like, yeah, sure, dude. Yeah, like that's ever going to happen. But he was like, no, you should do it. And he contacted them himself. Okay. I guess we didn't really believe in ourselves enough.
Yeah.
And very surprisingly, after a few weeks, we got an email from Robin, the label manager and guitarist from The Ocean. And he really loved the album, and he wanted to just re-release it properly. And we had a deal for multiple albums. So it's amazing.
Oh, it
was one of our favorite labels ever. And obviously, as a big time Ocean fan, it was an honor, and super happy with that. Yeah.
Jesus, a match made in heaven, so Stefan, if your love for Pelagic is that strong,
Definitely.
It was meant to be. That's absolutely meant to be, like. Yeah, and they're great to work for, obviously, or work with. Sorry, work with.
Yeah. A bit of both.
And any pressure from them to get music out?
No, I think that's actually a really good thing about them. Yeah.
Do they know they have to wait 3 years, Stefan?
No, I remember. Let's see. But I remember we got an email with my other band, Hippo Tractor. We got an email in January from Robin asking, "Are you guys going to release an album this year?" And we just said no. And he was like, "Okay." Just checking.
Brilliant. Just checking, yeah. Just in case we need to get something ready.
Yeah, that's it. So it wasn't he wasn't pressuring us or anything. No, I think since he's a musician and a songwriter himself,
but look,
he of all people understands what it's like. Yeah,
and that's another great angle to Pelagic, because these guys are musicians and they're involved and they know what's involved in creating music. It's not just a case of fucking throw it down anything and have it out there within a 6-month period. That's not the way it goes.
No, unfortunately not. No.
Now, Stefan, tell me again. We talked briefly about the Belgian post music scene, or even metal scene, whichever way you want to approach it. I was just scribbling band names earlier there, just while I was waiting for you to come on. And I mean, Emenra, who we spoke of, we've Astadan, Slow Crush, Celestial Wolves, Stories from the Lost, Brutus, Bars, Terraforma, Wanheda, Brickville. And these were bands that just came to my head this evening sitting here. The scene must be thriving at the moment, is it, in Belgium? Or is it specific to certain cities?
I think it's pretty much all over the country. I know that or at least for a while, this one province in Belgium, more to the west, was very active in the post-metal scene. That's where Amen-Ra originates from, and of course also bands like Stake Number 8. They're all from and I want to say Brutus too. I'm actually not sure, but anyway, it seemed to be like one location for a while, but now it just has spread all throughout the country basically. And of course, in our hometown in Mechelen, we also have bands like Potamus,
That's right.
or Lich, or just amazing bands. So it's coming from everywhere now. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, you've another fresh new bands coming through. It's not just the same bands holding the title for 10 or 15 years. I mean, even was it Hurricane, how you pronounce it? Another fantastic band, full of fucking energy, and it, you know, bringing another different dynamic to it, because it is a little different again to what's already been out. Yeah, so look, a very healthy scene so in Belgium.
Absolutely, yeah. Proud to be a part of it.
Does that translate to shows, to attendances?
Sure, yeah. I mean, of course, there was that whole post-COVID and high energy prices and inflation period. So for a while, it was kind of, you know, shows weren't selling really well, but now it seems to have passed, and it's amazing. Yeah, there are so many shows and a lot of really cool collaborations between bands as well. Bands booking shows together. Just it's amazing. Yeah, it's very, very much alive.
It's great to hear, isn't it? And I suppose there's a lot of bands travel through Belgium as well, I suppose, when they're on European tours, which is great too. Like, I mean, you get the smaller bands the opportunity to latch on to these bands.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we also, and again, it's a win-win, like, isn't it?
Yeah, and a lot of clubs here in Belgium do after shows as well. So you have a big band that is coming, an international band, and then the venue itself asks a local band to play after their show on a smaller stage, let's say.
All right.
Which is also a great way of getting them, you know, in the spotlight.
Fantastic idea. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very much supported, the whole alternative music scene in general, I think, in the country.
That's a great idea. Actually, I've never heard of that here in Ireland anyway. That idea of bands coming on afterwards like that, and great idea. Can I talk about your vocals, Stefan? Because they're so dynamic. They go from heavy to hard to soft, very melodic, gnarly, and vicious at times as well. And I know it is not just you. Obviously, there's two of you who does the vocals with you. Thomas, that's right. Yeah. Are you the main man? Does he fall in and do the harmonies? Does he do any parts on his own?
I write most of the vocal lines, but I think I haven't really calculated the percentage, but I think we pretty much sing 50-50.
Okay.
You know, we've been singing together for 10 years. We kind of know what works best with my voice and what works best with his voice. He's really the king of like really high, grungy, distorted vocals, but still sounding like semi-clean, let's say. Yeah. And I think I'm better at, of course, screaming and kind of singing a bit more in the lower register, maybe a bit more, like a bit more narrative vocals or something like that. And the combination, the harmonies, that's really become a big part of our sound.
It is a huge part of your sound, actually. And that's, again, it's another layer to your music that really attracts me to your sound, is the harmonies, you know, and the fact that they can go from high to low, and it's fantastic. Was there always going to be vocals in your music? It was never going to be an instrumental band?
Yeah. We always wanted vocals, because we kind of drifted from a previous band into this one, and it was all three of us, so myself, Thomas, and Peter. So we in that previous band we had a fourth member. He was a singer, and at that point Thomas and we didn't sing yet, but there were some problems, and our singer often couldn't make it to rehearsals. So Thomas and myself, we kind of just started singing out of boredom, because it just became boring to rehearse without vocals all the time. And kind of accidentally discovered that there were a lot of things we could not sing, but there were a few things we could do, and we just picked those parts out and developed those. And that's when we decided to start a new project and just sing with the two of us. Okay. So it's a happy accident, I guess, because our singer couldn't show up.
There you go. And at what stage does the vocals come into the recording and the mixing?
Mostly it's the last thing we do, I'd say. Yeah. Also when writing, most of the time that's the last thing we do. Yeah.
But you'd have the lyrics written possibly already, because you probably have a concept to the album.
Yeah, we don't. I think for Unfold the Godman, it was very, very much decided before I started writing a song that I knew exactly which chapter of the story they should tell.
Yeah.
This new album, it was a bit less defined, and I think I just had this overall feeling that it needed to have, but not necessarily this chapter or something specific it needed to say.
Yeah.
So what I usually do is just sing random words first to make sure that my vocal melody works.
Okay.
Including harmonies, everything I want, and then kind of think about how I can make this sound like a story, and also, of course, count the syllables of my rhythmic pattern and make sure that the words I have they make sense and they sound right. So it's this whole puzzle that we kind of do last. Yeah, when we write something. Yeah.
Actually, do you find it difficult to sing and play guitar together at the same time?
It depends. I like to think that I have gotten better at estimating how difficult something is to do at the same time.
Yeah.
And then I write a new album and I make the same fucking mistake again. And then
brilliant.
I have to play something ridiculous on the guitar, which I can play, but and I also have to sing something that is completely different. And yeah, sometimes it's rough.
Yeah, I always wonder, like, as a guitarist and vocalist, do you find yourself singing in harmony with the riff you're playing?
Sometimes, yeah.
Does that
sometimes
tend to happen
helps.
whether you want to or not? Does
Yeah,
it go
yeah,
that
yeah.
way? Yeah.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
It can be challenging. Yeah, there's this one song, A Pacifist's Guide to Violence from the new album, that is really borderline impossible, and I'm trying, but we'll see.
The next time I see you, so I'll be screaming for that track from below.
Yeah.
You to play that.
Shit.
Tell me, look, as a three-piece, Stefan, and again, like, technically, you sound fantastic. You're heavy when you need to be heavy. Do you ever consider a fourth man joining the band? Was it ever thought? Is it something that you could look down the line?
I don't know. It's anything's possible, but I don't think it will be necessary for now. Yeah. I think we have plenty of things to do that we haven't done before. There's always the whole idea that an album is different than a live show, and our albums are always layered excessively layered.
Yeah.
But they're not necessary to appreciate the song. The song always has to work without those things. So maybe at one point it would be cool to do something special, maybe do a few shows with some extra musicians where we could actually have those layers live as well.
Okay.
Because I don't really like backing tracks that much.
Yeah.
So maybe for a few shows, I would love to try that one day. But
maybe some guest appearances,
Yeah, exactly. Something like that. Yeah.
But I suppose, like, the technology is there now for three to play as heavy as you want. I mean, there's pedals.
Yeah.
That can fucking do everything. Like, it's amazing.
Exactly.
The sound that can be created now can be generated.
Yeah, and we have a great sound guy, so people always think we have 10 people on the stage because of him. So
shout out to him. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Come here, tell me, what's the plans for this year? So, Stefan, 2023. Obviously, you've more or less told us there's not going to be an album. So. No album. So what's the plan going forward? Is it touring? Is that mainly what you're hoping to do?
Yeah, I think so. We want to play as many shows as we can. We definitely want to do some tours, probably starting with some more European tours. Mm-hmm. We are working on a couple, but can't really say anything about them yet. But some things are in the works, let's say.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
And we're playing some really cool festivals again, and a lot more shows coming in. So yeah, just mainly be on the road, play shows.
That's great.
Have fun, enjoy, see the world.
And it's great to hear festivals are contacting you now.
Yeah, definitely.
That is sort of, it's a great acknowledgement of a band and how far they've come and what they've achieved, to see festivals coming after them as opposed to them chasing them to festivals. Yeah,
you're right. Absolutely.
Yeah, great stuff. You're in a good place for 2023, Stefan. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, I'm very, very happy and kind of I don't really understand it, or it's not really sinking in sometimes, but yeah, extremely thankful.
Like, it has moved pretty fast, I suppose, when you consider where you were 4 or 5 years ago to where you are now after this. Like, this album has seriously catapulted you into the big post scene. Like, you're talked about highly from everybody that I've ever spoken to. You know, you're, as I mentioned to other bands I've spoken to, you're on every list, album of the year list that I've come across this year, or last year, sorry, which is testament to how good that album is, really.
Thanks.
Very briefly, Hippo Tractor, your other is it a project? Is it a full-on band?
It's a full-on band. Yeah, definitely.
Have you something in the pipeline?
Also doing a lot of shows, actually. I think this is going to be the craziest year of my life so far. Because we've also got a really cool festival summer. We're playing Grass Pop, for instance, here in Belgium. It has the biggest metal festival in the country.
Yeah.
And Brutal Assault and Arctangent, again, second year in a row.
Yeah, brilliant.
So, yeah, really one cool festival after another. And it's crazy. Yeah, I can't believe what's happening.
It must be. You must need to pinch yourself at times.
Exactly.
Yeah. You'll have to take a 12-month time off work, do you? Do you need to take a year out?
I could, but unfortunately,
is it available to you?
The minute music actually makes money, I'll let you know.
Very good. Well, look, on that note, we'll go into the 3 questions I gave you, Stefan. There, during the week, I have 3 questions that I ask all my guests at the end, just for a bit of fun.
Sure.
If you could do a cover version, Stefan, of any track, past or present, do your own interpretation, what would it be?
I want to do an acoustic cover of 10,000 Days by Tool.
Oh, very good. Nice call.
Yeah. I secretly want to do No Quarter by Led Zeppelin, but Tool already did it.
Okay.
So I'll take a Tool song.
I was actually waiting for a Led Zeppelin song from you. I was saying this is without doubt a Led Zeppelin answer, but there you go.
Yeah, it's the best song in the world to me, No Quarter. The live rendition with the whatever 7-minute guitar solo.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck. I know every note of that solo. It's ridiculous. Yeah, it's my favorite song of all time. But Tool already covered it, so...
Yeah, you can't do that.
No.
Actually, out of curiosity, do you go back, when you go jamming together, do you play a lot of old stuff? Do you get together and jam out some old music? Just to warm up, or just to, you know...
We used to do that a lot with Peter, our first drummer, because he was also a big 70s guy. Nowadays, it's been difficult to rehearse a lot. So let's say that I'm looking forward to doing some things like that soon, because our drummer, Harm, he just spent 2 years in Berlin. He lived there temporarily for 2 years. So, and that also means that for every show and every rehearsal, he drove 8 hours. Jesus. And 8 hours back home. It was ridiculous.
Okay, so dedication. Okay.
Yeah. So, and now he's back in the Netherlands. So we're going to be rehearsing a lot more now. And yeah, we'll do that definitely.
Second question, Stefan, if you could be a guest on stage for any band, again, past or present, alive or dead, it doesn't matter, who would you have loved to walk on stage with?
Guest. So I'm playing with their band, right?
Yeah.
Oh, man. That's really hard.
Is it really hard because you're trying not to say Led Zeppelin? Is it?
Yeah, true. But they don't need a 5th member there. I would just mess everything.
Oh, no, but you'd be a guest. You'd be a guest on the stage, that's all. You'd be a guest.
Oh, yeah.
Just to experience it.
Yeah. No, actually, I want to say Black Sabbath, because I've always wondered what those guys are like. I think they're some of the craziest, or were some of the craziest people ever.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say Black Sabbath.
Great stuff. Great answer. And again, a band to look out for this year. Is there someone you want to name drop? A band that you are looking forward to hearing yourself, an album?
I have to be careful with what I say, because my favorite band in the country is the one that I believe in most at this point is Potamus. And I think they are going into the studio this year, but I have to be really careful not to spoil anything they don't want me to say.
Okay.
So let's say that I think Potamus, whether it be this year or next year, with their next album, are going to be huge.
Yeah.
And I also definitely believe a lot in Cobra the Impaler. Not sure if you know those guys.
No, I don't know. It's a new name to me now.
Amazing, very Mastodon-like sound, but really original. Cobra the Impaler.
Okay.
Amazing musicians. Yeah. I want to say those 2 bands. Yeah.
Brilliant. And last question for you. What was the last album you listened to before you came on this evening?
I was listening to Jose Gonzalez.
Oh, nice.
I was cooking dinner, and I like to listen to music like that when I'm cooking.
Yeah, I like a bit of Jose Gonzalez at times as well.
Yeah.
It's nice and chilled.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Stefan, that's it, man. Thanks so much for all that, and thanks for your time. Give my best to the band, the rest of the lads, and thanks for such an incredible album. By the Consensus Reality, it is really, really incredible. And I can only wish you all the best for 2023, lads. I hope to see you maybe on tour somewhere along the way. So there you go. Thanks, Stefan. Cheers, man.
You're very welcome, man. Thank you, Pat. Have a good day.
There you go, guys. That is Stefan from PSYCHONAUT. All I can say is check out their stuff, check out their music, buy their merchandise, and just support the band, please. That's it for now. I'll see you all again in 2 weeks' time. Thanks to Richie from the Metal Cell Podcast, who edits and produces the show, as always, and see you in a couple of weeks. Thanks, guys. That's it, Stefan. Thanks, man.
Cool, man. It was fun talking to you.
You too, absolutely, yeah. Great to get some insight into the album, you know.
Yeah, but you're a really fun interviewer too. It's fun that you know so much of what you're talking about. You actually really know us.
You know, this is the beauty of doing this at the moment, because I'm getting through the bands who I enjoy listening to, which is great. It'll be a worry when I come to a band who I'm just bringing on for the sake of it, and I'll struggle.
Yeah, sure.
But for now, look, it's great to speak to bands that, again, as I said, I'm a big fan of.